Well, greetings to you all. I hope you're having a great day so far. I want to talk about something today that I think we all experience. And from day to day, we may not notice it, but it is the abundance of God's blessings in our life. He doesn't just give us the exact amount that we need to get by, but He is an abundant God. A very caring Savior. And I want to focus on that a little bit. In Matthew 14 and verse 15, when it was evening, his disciples came to him saying, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is already late, and we need to send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and get some food." And Jesus said to them, they don't need to go away. You need to give them something to eat. And of course, this was a provocative statement. It caused them obviously to, come back with their next statement. We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, well, bring those to me. And he commanded, of course, them to sit down in companies and groups on the ground. And they began to pass out the bread to this 5,000 people plus. And they all ate and they were filled. And then they took up 12 baskets of leftovers. And yet, in this story, we know that it would have been just as miraculous. And there would have been no complaining had they took up no leftovers at all. And they could have said, look what you did. You gave us exactly what we needed. But he made sure there was an abundance. In Matthew 15 and 36, he took up 7 loaves and 5 fish, gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes, and they were all filled. And they took up 7 large baskets full of fragments at that time. And you might say here that God is the one that invented leftovers, but there wasn't a point. His point wasn't just to say, I want to make sure you have something for tomorrow. But we see here, and in the fact too that this happened on 2 accounts, means that it was a principle that he truly wanted us to learn. It had to be established. In both cases here, it was important enough to mention the amount of extra. He wanted them to understand we're counting what is left over because it's blessed. And, some would feed a family that wasn't there. Others would take it home and drop it off perhaps by a sick relative. Who knows at what the leftovers did. And they were able not only to go home and talk about how that he fed the multitude of thousands with just a little bit, but here's the proof of it. And they might have showed it to somebody who wasn't able to be there, and then to tell them, repeat the stories that Jesus said and the principles that he talked about. And here's the bread that he multiplied. There's no telling what all happened to this and how important it was. But the main thing was, it was to show them that God is faithful. And he's never just going to let us have enough to get by. That's not his nature. He wants us to have more and more than enough. In Matthew 16 and 5, when they had forgotten to take bread, he said, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they said, is it because we've brought no bread? He said, being aware of it, he said to them, you have little faith. Why do you reason among yourselves? Because you have brought no bread. Do you not yet understand or remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Nor the 7 loaves, nor the 4,000 and how many large baskets you took up? So here he reflects back on the miracle, but he's talking about the leftovers. You need to remember that I gave you more than enough, because you're going to come to a place like they did and say, Lord, are we going to make it? Are we going to be able to get through this? But one of the things that he was letting them know is you may forget sometimes to bring your lunch. You may forget something in your life that's you don't need to forget. You may come to a crossroads. You don't know which way to go. Understand that I extend into that place where you don't. I pick up where you leave off and even beyond, letting them understand a great principle, and that is He cares for us, even when we come up short, even when we can't, even when we don't have the will to continue. God is there with more than enough, more than what we could ever ask for. You know, He was talking about that doctrine of the Pharisees that dealt with outward appearances and, you know, the yeast in the bread, it puffs it up with air, making it appealing to the flesh. But here they're in a boat with the one who not only fed thousands, but drew attention to the fact that He provided way more than enough. He didn't just feed thousands, but He did so in a way to show that He is not stingy with His blessings. A gift or a blessing is always going to say something about the giver. They might even put their name on a tag and says it's from me to you. You know, the gift may be wrapped so beautifully, and I've seen gifts like this that I hardly wanted to disturb the wrapping paper. Or it just might be a typical wrapped gift, but it all is going to be an act of love. And this is here what the disciples had to understand, that He is just going to do more than what He needs to do. But we must look deeper in that and find out there's something in His nature that obviously He wants to share with us. And the point of these leftovers was that Jesus wasn't slack. There wasn't a cutoff point. There's never going to be just enough, but He's not going to ever run out. And life can be really so wonderful when we realize the balance between receiving blessings and giving back praise and giving back service. We'll never outgive Him. We'll never get ahead of God. He is abundant in what He does. So never feel guilty about asking. Don't ever feel that you don't have a right. It is in God's plan that we have an abundance. It's in His plan that we never go hungry. It's in His plan that there's always a blessing right behind that last blessing. And so look for it, pray for it. Matthew 11:28, come unto me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I'm humble and gentle at heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. I will always be indebted to Him. To complement His nature of abundant blessings, we see here His equally abundant mercy and kindness. He says, take my yoke upon you. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. There again, we see the abundance. You just yoke up with me, and I'm going to do the heavy lifting. You're just going to partner with me and do it in faith. He gives us way more than we ask for, and He demands, little in return compared to His abundant blessings. In Matthew 19:13, they were brought unto Him little children, that He should put His hands on them and pray. And the disciples rebuked the crowds. But Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And He told them, He said, you've got to be like a little child. We've got to be like that child that doesn't worry about tomorrow. That child that knows everything in their life is wrapped up in what their parents can provide them. And they are a perfect reflection, really, of the kingdom that God is building. They're needy, but very prone to tell you what they need. And you give them a piece of candy, and they don't mind coming back and saying, I want more. They don't think, well, I'm a little shy. No, children have boldness, and they'll ask. Day or night, they will come to you for help. And He has said, let them come to me, because that's what the kingdom is about. That is a great mirror or reflection of the kingdom. And some may see children as fragments, but Jesus sees them as perfect examples, saying, this is what it's about. That's what I'm trying to show you. He provides us with way more than we need spiritually. We need Him, but the provision is there. Israel, they left manna behind every morning, and that was a detail of He always provides extra. Our portion of His Spirit is enough to fill our needs and really go beyond and absorb the hits and the dings, that life may bring. But He knows you very intimately. He knows your details. And you have enough of His Spirit to cover the losses. He makes sure it's there. We just have to ask for it. We must avail ourselves of that possibility of of that abundant living, that Spirit of God that is going to flow when we need it to flow. Often we may get into a lonely place, a desert place, and we may feel dry, and we may feel that we haven't, felt his presence in a while. And it's in that place there you need to stop and remind yourself about the baskets. There's more than enough. He will provide. He will show up right now. And it's not about what we feel. It's about what we must know. And we have to know and remind ourselves. They took up extra. They took home extra. There's enough. And there's enough to overcome my downsitting and my uprising. As the scripture said, he knows you very well. He knows when you're on a high. He knows when you're going through a low. But he has provision for whatever you're going through. Luke 6:35 and through 38, he said, love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great. And you will be sons of the Most High, for he's kind to the unthankful and to the evil. That's abundance. He goes beyond. Therefore, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Judge not, and you'll be not judged. Or condemn not, and you shall not be condemned. Forgive, and you'll be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over will he put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. But the measure you use, when it goes through God's hands, it's going to come back to you abundantly. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. That's how God blesses you and I. I must attempt. This is my part. This is your part. I must attempt to be abundant in my Christian service. That's just the whole package there. Abundant in every way. All above is giving. Love, do good, lend, don't judge, be merciful, etc. It's all about giving of ourselves. Give and you'll receive in the same manner. Let fragments remain. Do more than is enough. Somebody is looking at that. Somebody's needing that. Go out of your way to thank somebody. Go out of your way to show mercy, to show love, to show compassion, and to show you care. And when you give again. And look for ways to demonstrate the nature of a God who is truly an abundant God. We can't take it with us, but we can make a difference while we're here. Let's try it. God bless you. Be so thankful for what God has done because he is an abundant God.